What are some mysterious, cult-like bad vibes towns across the USA? Story 1. I used to live in Liberty, and when I was in 8th grade, we went to the Vider School for a choir play. I was with my black friend walking through the school, and some kid called him a spook. As a child, I didn't know what that meant, but that all we ever experienced. Story 2. Come to my town, Washington Courthouse, Ohio. I didn't realize how truly effed this town is until I related a 2-sentence townie anecdote here on Reddit in a comment section and got like 20,000 upvotes. Story 3. Any town in the Pacific Northwest that is not named Portland, Eugene, Salem, Vancouver, Seattle, Tacoma, Spokane. Once you leave those cities, it gets very rednecky and hillbilly-esque very quickly. Everyone knows everyone and everyone is related, and we don't take too kindly to strangers around here is the motto. Story 4. There was a town I went to where the entire community got around by golf carts. The pavement and sidewalks were super produced like they are in theme parks. It was a subdivision neighborhood, but it had its own market, taverns, church, and parks. Everything seemed like the Truman Show. It was odd. Story 5. Milligan, Nebraska. Population 300. When I went there, I went into a breakfast place and sat down with my friend. It was not hospitable. It was straight out of a bad episode of Crazy Town. I felt like I walked into hee-haw hell, and the stares were so focused that I said hello to a few folks only to be given looks and uncomfortable silence. Around 20-ish people, just small, hushed chats. On my way out, I asked the cashier if I did something wrong. She said, "We don't get many strangers around here." My parting comment to the lady at the register was, they should take the sign at the corner down and shove it up the ass of the residents for being rude as fuck. The sign? Milligan, the hospitality capital of Nebraska. Story 6. Yeagertown, PA. Some friends and I were in town for a wedding, and the day after the wedding we went to Sticky Buns Cafe for breakfast. There were 6 of us, 3 males, 3 females, and we were a diverse lot. A few ethnicities were represented, but none of us had extreme hair, facial hair, piercings, or tattoos. We walked in and everyone stopped whatever they were doing and just stared at us. All conversations stopped. People stopped eating. I swear a waitress even over-poured someone's coffee while she was staring at us. We got our food almost instantly after we ordered. They couldn't get us out fast enough. It was a really creepy vibe. Story 7. These are the 2 that probably fit the definition best that I know of in my home state. Shawano, Wisconsin. The town is home to a secretive religious group that everyone refers to as the cult. I worked with people that used to go by the compound. They have someone parked at the end of their driveway, and if you stop or slow down in front of their land, they call the county sheriff on you for trespassing. The kids call it Rama running. A few years back, there was also a hit list circulating of town officials that they wanted dead for one reason or another. Cambria, Wisconsin. Remember the plot to kidnap Michigan's governor during COVID? This is the town they were going to take her to in order to stand trial. Those people were part of an organized anti-government militia. I stay away from this area as a result. You're on the very outskirts of the driftless area, and that is known for the hills and valleys that cause a lot of isolation in the southwestern part of the state. Story 8. I wish I could remember the name of the stop. I don't even know if it would be a town. I was on a cross-country drive with a friend, and after several hundred miles of nothing through South Dakota, we saw a sign for a place with buffalo burgers, so we pulled over. This place was straight out of a horror movie, run down, freezers everywhere with any part of a buffalo you could want. No place to order a cooked burger? We walked around the too quiet place and ended up in this room with very old pre-animatronic figures and scenes, very racist ones and very creepy. We noped out of there real quick after. Story 9, Rusk, Texas. This place is the site of a state mental health hospital that still has an entrance identifying it as Rusk State Penitentiary. I went there with some co-workers to visit a patient of ours who was at the hospital. We are mental health workers from Houston. Our patients are sent to this state hospital. The patrons in the diner where we had lunch were not friendly. The waitress told us she was sure we were not from around here. We asked her how did she know. She said it was our sunglasses. LOL, right. It's a creepy place. The hospital workers were outright hostile to us. Even thought we were visiting a person under our outpatient care. They gave 0 Fs. Story 10. I'll add another one, Bernie say. My ex-husband's uncle lives up in the mountains. It's creepy like PNW serial killer vibes, mixed with anti-establishment survivalist types who believe aliens live in Mount Shasta. He was in the Aryan Brotherhood and has lots of off-grid paranoid beliefs, and is one of those people who think the U.S. is a corporation. He went to prison for not paying his taxes or some other nonsense. Story 11, Arab, Alabama. Town was still segregated in the 90s, and the first black kid moved to town in that decade. Teachers and students threw rocks at him from what I heard. He was in elementary school. People pulled their kids, teachers quit. It was a thing. The KKK met openly in the town even before then. Racist joke sheets would be passed around at parties. Women in town would regularly have black eyes. Awful place. Why did we live there? My parents completely missed the sundowner sign at the edge of town, so had no idea how bad it was until our moving men bolted before sunset. Realtor never said shit. Story 12. Bayview, Michigan. Local association is being sued, since they basically tried to mandate you have to be Catholic to live there. I was up in this area for a contract job. Only place I've ever heard anti-Christian but pro-Catholic radio stations. Lots of warnings of young people with guitars on college campuses approaching your children to invite them to youth groups that stray from the teaching of the Catholic Church. Place is weird AF, and they definitely hide bodies under their Victorian summer homes. Story 13. Avondale Estates, Georgia. Current resident for now, which is a story. The place has quite a history if anyone wants to take a deep dive, and I'm here to say it's still weird as hell, and I can't wait to leave. There is a big sense of being an outsider and neighbors spy on each other. It was built in the 1890s by a pharmaceutical magnate to resemble Shakespeare's English birthplace, Stratford-on-Avon. The architect was a big-time white supremacist and charlatan, and the plan was for it to be an exclusively white-only neighborhood with restaurants, theater, stores, a club, a lake where they hold picnics and socials, and a huge 4th of July fireworks show that's legendary. A mini-town for wealthy Atlantans who wanted to be away from the riffraff and live in a cultic faux Edwardian all-white village with a perfect little town green amongst like-minded citizens. It has its own police force, courthouse, fire station, and all the things, but has only 3,000 people and is one of the richest zip codes per capita in the U.S. All kinds of little fires abound, but the police force and some city official got in actual trouble a few years ago for using nefarious tactics on outsiders /POC, and many of the folks are still icky and creepy, though new blood is changing it slightly. But realtors don't post homes for sale. It's all underground. It was also known as a sundown town. Google it. Roads are resident-only access with snotty, passive-aggressive signs posted on stone archways making sure the message gets out. So imagine the homeowners association from hell mixed with a Desperate Housewives meets Twin Peaks vibe. But this is set in an English village made by the same people who brought you The Truman Show with a bird sanctuary in the middle of it. But it's not really a sanctuary for anything but maybe birds, BC. It's actively hostile, but is also 5 miles outside of the metropolis of Atlanta. It's very eerie. Story 14. I had a panic attack in a hotel in Barstow, California, because every human I interacted with was so unsettling and eerie, I was convinced my organs were going to be harvested. I went to McDonald's before getting a hotel. In the drive-thru, there was a homeless man standing directly in front of the menu just staring at us. Thought he was going to ask for money. He didn't. Just stood 3 feet from us and stared. I asked the McDonald's employee which town we were in, as I had been driving all day. She said, "You're in Barstow, CA, the crackiest of the crackiest. Enjoy!" That was the most normal interaction I had there. The employee at the second window looked completely empty. I mean, nothing was in his head. Employees behind him also just looked so uncanny and off. I didn't eat the food. I didn't trust it. Hotel check-in was awful. Same just weird, uncanny, blank stares and a couple of words. I went to the bathroom once I got in my hotel. I went to wash my hands and the water was red. I smelled my hands and it just smelled like the strongest odor of pennies and ammonia. I turned on the shower. Same color. Whole bathroom engulfs in the awful smell. Ran out to my car and used an entire bottle of hand sanitizer just to try to get the smell out. It didn't. Went back to my hotel and had a panic attack. Story 15, Durban, West Virginia, 2002. My brother and I went there on a drizzly gray day to see if the Durban rocket sightseeing train was operating and also to check out some old Civil War battlefields. Parked and walked around town looking for a place to eat, and there was only one. All the windows were filthy, and I can recall a few indistinct faces staring out at us from the tables by the front door. Pass. We moved on and found a market that had seemingly survived the Great Depression of 1929, with descendants of the owners still apparently operating it. It was the only place in town to shop, and I remember that they had minimal inventory on the mostly empty shelves. 3 bars of ivory soap, a couple of loaves of Wonder Bread, etc. They actually had a deli, and we ordered a pound of ham and a pound of cheese and decided to picnic at a battlefield park. They sliced it, charged us an absurdly low amount, and we bought the last jar of mustard and fled with our lunch, driving to an old battleground a few miles away. We ate at a picnic table in the light rain, on the site where thousands had died in the war between the states, feeling like we were in a time warp, just a couple of Yankees trying to enjoy some basic fare in the drizzle, wondering if we were in the crosshairs of a Confederate who thought the war hadn't ended. The train wasn't running that day, and it seemed appropriate. We headed back up northbound on the highway. Beautiful country, but eerie and odd. Story 16. I don't recommend ever stopping in Skidmore, Mo. That is the small town where everyone came together to shoot its town bully. My ex and I moved just south of there about 15 years ago. He had bought something off Facebook Marketplace that took us through Skidmore. We stopped off at the gas station, and I've never felt more uncomfortable in my life with how quiet the store got when we walked in. Mind you, I'm from a very small town in Iowa, so I chalked it up to small town being mistrustful of outsiders' vibe. No, it was different and more sinister of a feeling. I found out later that there have been several disappearances in that town. The town folk won't rat on each other. Just keep driving if you ever find yourself in that area. That town has murderers walking around freely because they will cover each other's asses. Story 17, Redding, California. There's a megachurch there that actively recruits young foreigners to attend their faith healing school. The church members follow people around grocery stores trying to faith heal them. They've taken over the government and are trying to take over businesses, board of education, and everything else in that small town. They're huge Trump supporters. It's called the Bethel Church, and it's a scary, crazy cult. Lots of churches like this are springing up, called charismatic churches, but they're one of the foremost ones. This isn't going to end well. Story 18. I absolutely loved the town and the area, but when me and a buddy were riding our motorcycles on a 10-day trip, we stopped in Orofino, Idaho to eat some breakfast. Went to a diner, and as soon as we walked in, everyone stared at us the entire time. The waitress was amazing and chatted us up like we were one of the locals, but every customer there looked at us, mainly my buddy, like we were some crazy dope-smoking hippies. Now for a bit of backstory. We're from Olympia, Washington area where everyone is pretty open-minded and a lot of people dress in very alternative styles. So my buddy was rocking his tie-dyed shirt, long-ass hair, and his normal hippie crystal necklace. So he definitely didn't fit in. Me, short crew-cut hair, double-knee Carhartt work pants, and Romeo shoes. I knew where TF we were riding to. I was trying to fit in, not stand out like a stoned hippie at a cop convention. Story 19, Newtown, Missouri. Technically, it's just a neighborhood in St. Charles, but it's just so terrible. If you look at the houses on Google Maps, they are very Truman Show-esque. Cheap cardboard houses being sold with a mindset of creating a utopia community in the whitest county in the greater St. Louis area. It's uncanny valley with Sims architecture. The sides and backs of the houses give away how poorly designed they are. The whole piece of land gives me heebie-jeebies. Story 20. Salton Sea and the surrounding areas. We went to the ski inn. Locals were there, and though it was a little awkward, they were nice enough. We drove to Salvation Mountain, which was beautiful. We met the creator. This was back in 07 or 08. Very cool. Then we drove past an RV park. It became more and more eerie. They have their own radio station, and the folks we met were not very friendly. As the sun set, I kept getting the feeling we needed to leave, IDK man. Even though it was very cool out there, it was also very creepy. Story 21. There's all this talk of SW Oregon, rightly so, and nobody mentioned Ashland. I lived there, and it was wonderful, but it is like a new age cult haven, mixed with dashes of deadheads who stopped touring, and hippies who aged out and bought property. Very affluent compared to the rest of the area. Emotional body empowerment was one of the cults in the area, and they owned a few businesses as far as I recall. Story 22. There's a little place in Missouri called the Heartland Community. Have you ever seen Heartland Creamery products at the store? That was them. That place is a tiny little self-contained church town in the middle of nowhere. Last time I was out there, they had a gas station, restaurant, grocery store, laundromat, auto shop, schools, a community college, a bank, a car museum, rehab facilities, a hotel with another restaurant, a zoo, a Christian college, and a stocked lake. All of that with about 50, 60 houses and a couple of small apartment buildings. The old guy that founded the place passed away 8 or 9 years ago, and his widow began shutting some things down and selling others off, like the dairy business. The restaurant in the hotel was the only reason we went there, so we stopped going once it was closed, and I have no idea what all is still left out there. Very weird to just have this little town all connected to the same church out in the middle of nowhere, with just about everything you would need to never have to leave. Story 23. I don't know if this is true for everyone that lives there, but Shreveport, Louisiana. I stopped there with my family once in the middle of a road trip years ago. There were eerie vibes, and I don't tend to be paranoid, but people kept staring at us, even while eating dinner at an Italian restaurant. At one point, an angry man followed us while we were driving. I don't think we were doing anything out of the ordinary, just stopping for food. So I have no clue what the deal was. We didn't feel safe there, so my mom kept driving through the night to get out of there. I've never felt so unwelcome in a city in my entire life. Story 24, Weot, California. We were looking for a convenience store to stock up on snacks before going to see the giant sequoias along Avenue of the Giants. Pulled off in Weot. The place seemed a little run down. NBD, not uncommon for little podunk Northern California towns. Then we noticed every pedestrian in the 3-block wide town looked like Trevor Phillips from GTA Vi, and all of those mofos were giving us hard stares. After a minute or so, we decided that we ought to get the fuck out of there, so we did. Story 25. Not what you might expect, but I got that from Cleveland, Ohio the only time I ever went there. This was back in the mid-90s, and I forget why, but my mom and her boyfriend at the time were driving through Cleveland on Thanksgiving and looking to stop for food somewhere. Not only was there nothing at all open, not even a Chinese food place, but the really creepy thing was that there were no people in evidence except one white van driving slowly around the town. No one on the streets, no one in the buildings, no cars driving around. The whole city was a ghost town. Story 26. Irvine, California. Any homeless people that comes in gets picked up by police and is dropped off in nearby cities like Santa Ana, Costa Mesa. Everything is built cookie cutter and on a grid. The Irvine Company, they basically run the city, raises rent on businesses they don't like until they can't afford it, just so they can bring in business they like. Story 27. If not cult-like, certainly inbred. Reserve, New Mexico, heart of Catron County. Not neo-Nazi, but about as anti-government as places in the Idaho Panhandle. The people who shoot the reintroduced Mexican wolves any chance they get. I've been through there a couple of times, but long ago. From there on north on the north side of the Mogollon Rim into Arizona is all May in my book. Getting over into Arizona, it's not FLDS, but it is conservative within Mormonism. A lot of people in that whole area. Story 28. Salina, Utah. Or any place in Utah for that matter. I was driving from Virginia to California, and had just driven through the Colorado Rockies and nearly an hour into Utah without seeing a single gas station on I-70. When I walked into the truck stop, everyone just stopped what they were doing and stared at me like they had seen a ghost. I paid for my soda and junk food, and the woman behind the counter didn't want to look me in the eye, and she appeared distressed from having to serve me. As a white man in my 40s, I have never seen anything like that in my life. Utah is nothing more than a state that is owned by the Mormon Church, and they clearly identify outsiders very quickly. Very scary. Story 29. Surprised no one has mentioned Gibsonton, Florida. It's basically where carnival workers go to retire. Literally, the entire town is built on being weird as shit, and everyone who goes there has a different story of either getting scammed or running into some weird people. The town is so weird that they made an X-Files episode about it where there was supposed to be all sorts of paranormal things going on. But in the end, it was just normal Gibsonton residents being creepy. Story 30. The area around Doylestown, Pennsylvania isn't cult-like in any way, but driving through that area was like driving through a weird portal in that, with no traffic, it felt like it took way too long to traverse maybe 15 miles of road. Everything was weirdly repetitive in a way that I'd never felt before, very much unlike, say, a cookie-cutter residential subdivision. Also, a local sheriff showed up in a pink Jeep to help a camper trailer that had quietly sheared off its entire right face on a downed power line. So that was surreal too. Story 31. Driving through rural Maine towards the ocean on the 4th of July weekend. The road we're on has been barricaded because the small town up ahead is about to have their 4th of July parade on this road. I can see ahead crowds already gathering. The guy at the barricade gestures toward a detour they made to get past the parade and on your way quickly. So we turned down this gravel road which led us into a wooded area. I started getting the creeps. There was this old rickety house among the trees and some toothless old lady was staring at us as we drive by. There were other things that made me feel uneasy, and I started feeling like we were in a real-life version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We followed the homemade detour signs until we couldn't find any more. We were deep into the woods and lost. I was almost certain the parade was faked, and the townsfolk were preparing for our sacrifice. It didn't help that since it was Maine, everyone talked like Judd Crandall from Stephen King's Pet Sematary. We did find our way out long past that creepy town, and I realized it was mostly my imagination once that we got out safe, but at the time I was sure we were going to die.